Bias is inherently prevalent in the world. However, FOMO and greed will always overcome bias.
Welcome everybody back to SUBTA Studios. Thank you so much for being here. If you're not already subscribed, we always appreciate that. Give us a like, the follow. I'm so thankful to be joined today by Brian Mcmahon, founder and head honcho of Expert Dojo. Thanks for joining me, Brian.
It is great to be here.
Tell me what Expert Dojo does. Give me your background.
On its very base level, Expert Dojo is an accelerator because that's what people understand. So we give checks of $100,000 to companies, and those companies are generally, they tick a few boxes, right? So they're early stage, very early stage. So most of the time, their product is just in market. Maybe we have a couple of customers that we got some traction from. We can kind of gauge where it might go in the future if we put some dry powder in there. And then we'll take a percentage equity of that company. But what's important within how we work with the companies is, as an accelerator, is it's not just giving money and then hoping the company goes okay. It's about, like, we're married to that company from the first moment. We're working with them on their business growth, their market entry, their strategy. We're working with them on their big vision. We're working with them on their branding, on their product fit. We're working with them, like, I would say probably in each cohort we bring in, which is 12 or 13 companies, at least one or two of the companies will change their name. Like, that's how deep we'll go into what needs to change, because we want them to help find something huge that the world is going to bring.
You guys aren't just a typical accelerator. You look for companies that are, run by minorities, by women. You really try to build a diverse portfolio.
So I would love to say that I started off Expert Dojo at the beginning to save minorities and women and everything else, but that is not the truth. I started Expert Dojo because I love startup and because I wanted to create an environment whereby we helped startup get stronger. And I struggled with the fact that 98% of startups fail. And that, to me, is just not a good, as an Irish guy, I would not go to a bar with a 98% chance of not getting a beer, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The statistic just troubled me. So we started the dojo kind of as a laboratory for entrepreneurs, and we wanted to understand the reasons behind failure. And then we went through the whole gamut of watching them and then training them, and then moving from a glorified laboratory to a training studio to a venture studio to an accelerator. And then we said, okay, now we're ready, after a year or two of learning and studying and re-honing our trade as an accelerator, we're ready to start investing. And then we started putting some investment into some companies, and we realized a few things. Number one, we realized that Y Combinator, 500 Startups, and all those folks, that they own this market. And if you are a startup, you're going to go to one of those guys. Like, why would you come to this random Irish guy here when you've got, like, an accelerator that's been going for years, and they spit out companies like Stripe and Airbnb and everything else, right? Number two, I've realized that those types of accelerators are not really catering to the folks in the world who are the unheard voices, like the great entrepreneurs that are out there, but they're not connected to anyone. Nobody really knows them. Nobody's seen them, but they have this great idea, and they know that their great idea will not make it to market because somebody else will have $100 million to destroy them long before they ever get there. We started off by saying, wow, imagine if we started focusing on women. Like, that would be cool, because we know they're great. We know they execute. We know logistically they're strong. We know that they will die before they let somebody else lose money. And we also know that they're really smart and they're great at building companies. And statistically, they have a higher rate of success. So tick,
Really?
tick, 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 tick. So then we started investing in them. And the women started investing and started doing really well. And we thought, wow, imagine if we started investing in minorities as well. And we started going there too. So we started to widen our breadth beyond just the local people here in the US. And we said, why don't we start looking at countries like Africa and Estonia, Canada, Chile, and Mexico, and Korea, and all these great countries who are, like, stacked all over that innovation map. And we bring those companies into the US. Like, we do what was done in the US right at the beginning, which is to get great people, populate the place, have those great people expand, and with that great innovation that's there, create this amazing nation. So why don't we do it again within startup, but we light up the place with these great startups everywhere. And so it kind of just happened. And our view is that people will see the success that's coming from the companies that we're investing in, and see how many companies that we're investing in. And then this will light like a fire.
I think in one of our previous conversations, you said only 2.3% of companies are all female founding teams. And I think it was like 10.4% for mixed gender founding teams. Is that right? Is that
so
true?
the really awful stats about female founders and minority founders are the actual funding stats. So how many of them are getting funded? So the kind of numbers that you're looking at there, that is the percentage of female founders that are raising subsequent rounds of funding versus male founders. So it's just, it's the disparity is ridiculous. And the one that we talked about earlier on this morning is the fact that since 1817, when the stock market launched in the US, only 20 women founded, launched, and IPO, so brought companies to public offerings on the stock exchange in that entire time. Like, we are talking 200 years.
As an accelerator, you guys seek out these companies to help them grow, right?
What you need to understand, first of all, is that venture capital in general is a boys' club of people who happen to go to really nice schools, mainly Ivy League, and the vast majority of them are investment bankers. They went to an Ivy school, they hang out with other boys, they're all investment bankers. Like, what do we think they're going to do? They're going to go to their friends and their friends' friends, and they're going to say, hey, do you have, can you speak to little Johnny who went to Harvard and see if little Johnny would like $50 million because it's burning a hole in our pocket? And that's kind of the way the system works. And of course, there's more logic behind the types of companies it goes with. But the types of people that are chosen are just chosen because that's the pool of people that they've been surrounded with their entire life. So for me, when the unfairness reaches that stage, the big loser is America. It's not even the people who lose, it's America, because we have got frigging hundreds of thousands of brilliant people who can kill it and create incredible innovation throughout America and the world, and we don't give those people the opportunity. And I'll just add one other stat, which I think is incredibly relevant. There is a Bloomberg report which is done every single year, and that Bloomberg report is based on innovation in the world. And what it does is it stack ranks the top countries in the world against each other on 5 or 6 criteria in innovation. It's things like the amount of patents which are done. It's about the workforce productivity. It covers areas such as the amount of tech that's all together in one particular place. So it's a very, very good report, and it's well recognized around the world. In 2013, I believe, America was numero uno, the first country in the world for innovation. Like, we killed it. And even though I have an Irish accent, like, I've lived in this country for long enough to use a big we here. Like, and that's something I'm real proud of in the startup space. Today, we are number 13, which is shit. So why are we number 13? Because of all of the stuff I'm talking about. So we have major problems in where this is going to.
You made a statement where you said, I don't know if it's we're really smart or other people aren't seeing it. And I mean, I'm sure it's a combo of the two, right? And that's my question for you is, why are people not seeing that? When you list off all these great traits, and just focus on women for a second, of these women founders, that they will die for their companies, they'll do whatever it takes, and they're statistically more successful. Why is that statistic so staggering that only 20 women have ever taken a company public?
It's amazing, right? I don't know. I think it's how we're wired as people. We will go for what's comfortable with us. Like, if you even think about like kids in school, when you go to college, when you go to the bar and you meet with a couple of, like, it's always the same, right? We'll see someone, maybe you're the funny person in the group, and then there's another person over there that's funny, and you'll be attracted to that person who's funny, and you become friends with that person. And even though it seems really basic, I don't believe that VCs wake up in the morning. And by the way, there is another issue to this too. It's harder work. That's the truth. It's not easy. Look, option A, I take $10 million, give it to a founder. Founder went to a nice school, knows a bunch of other people who can give them money. They build a company. Brian gets wealthy. They get wealthy. Everything's fine, right? Option B, we have to work really friggin' hard.
Yeah.
I'll go for option A. And that's kind of how people think, right? But we just want to show that if you go for option B, more people will succeed. And if more people will succeed, it's better for the fund, it's better for America, and it's better for the entrepreneurs themselves. And it's just better for society.
So, and like you said, I doubt any venture capitalist is waking up in the morning saying, I'm going to invest in a bunch of rich white kids today.
Yeah.
That's not the end goal. It's not what anybody's waking up and saying, but that's what's happening. Right. Mm-hmm. And, so you brought up a couple of points of how we start to make that change and how we start to make a difference. What are some things that we as a community, as SUBTA, as accelerators, as companies in the space? How can we continue to make a difference?
It's a super point. And actually, I did a TEDx talk a couple of years ago, 5-6 years ago, when I first started this. And I did the talk because I had a very similar conversation with a friend of mine. And I said, well, the only problem is this business is racist, sexist, elitist. And it's not even really racist or sexist, because it's elitist way before it becomes racist or sexist. You can't even get past elitist. So because of that, and I said, so that's a problem. And what my friend said was, look, if you really believe this, you cannot be a venture capitalist without speaking your truth, right? So you got to go out there and talk about it. So I did a talk which spoke to that, which was called The Kidnapping of the American Dream. And a lot of VCs came to me afterwards and said, so we're with you. Like, you have no argument from us, but give us a good pool of deal flow. Like, don't just say to us that we're rubbish and we're terrible. Like, give us a great pool of deal flow. And then so after that, I realized that it's on me. It's not on them to fix how they are. It's on me to find better companies and bring those companies through and not have people go poor to do the right thing. So we came up with a very simple thesis in Expert Dojo. And this drives everything we do. We no longer bring in companies with a view to finding investment for them at the next round, even though that is the entire game of this Ponzi scheme that we live in, right? We do not do that anymore. Now, the only thesis we work on is that bias is inherently prevalent in the world. However, FOMO and greed will always overcome bias. Every single biased person in the world has a number where their bias can be overcome. Yeah. Now, what is that number? Is it 20 grand a month in monthly recurring revenue? Is it 40 grand? Is it 100 grand? Is it 150 grand? In Florence's case, it was 200 grand. Like, that's what it took for a solo black founder, female founder, to be able to get an investor to commit behind and say, we believe in you. So if we know that every single person has a number, then that should be our focus. And then that becomes our focus in Expert Dojo and the focus of the startups. So we say to the startups, let's stop feeling sorry for ourselves. Let's stop worrying about the fact that the world is unfair. Let's stop trying to persuade people to do the right thing and look for nonprofits and good people in the world. F everybody else in the world. Let's focus on hitting our number. That's all that matters. So you go out there, you build an incredible brand, you build an unbelievable personal brand, and then you go to customers and then you fight like a beast. And every single day you build and you learn and you adapt and you execute. There's no more creation or talking about all of this intellectual BS about how you're going to do and when you're going to do and where you're going to do. You just do, and you do right now. And it's been just such a pleasure to watch, because we see these companies coming through, and what's happening is VCs are coming on board and saying, we believe in you because you've hit your number. That's it. So it's down to startups. It's not down to the rest of the world. Let's not worry about VCs. Let's not worry about anybody else. Let's just build awesome companies in beast mode that can scale.
As we look at companies that are looking to grow and scale and are looking, minority-owned businesses that are looking to be part of your accelerator or to grow to that point where they could be considered for that, what's the best advice that you can give them?
So we look for kind of 5 things when we're investing in a company. And I think these 5 things are relatively generic across the board. So if people take them in mind, they'll be in good stead. So the first thing is always the execution of the entrepreneur. And success leaves clues. So when you look at execution, you can see with people how they started that, but it didn't work. And it didn't work because the co-founder left me. It didn't work because the COVID came along. Or it didn't work because of this. And it doesn't matter if it's a job, if it's university, if it's a marriage, you see there's certain people who execute and there are certain people who don't execute. And you want those people who are incredible executors. If they've done it in the previous startup and we can see what their trajectory looked like, that's great. But if not, we can still see it in life. And we want to know what that execution is going to look like based on their skill sets for what they're looking to do right now. Okay, the second thing is the skill gapping within the team. So for example, I've had startups previously where I'm really strong on biz dev, but my tech skills are not the greatest in the world. And that means my user experience skills are not the greatest in the world. And if I build a great product with a terrible user experience, it will fail 100%. I can build a mediocre product with an incredible user experience and it can fly. So you got to make sure the skill gapping in the team is right there. So if somebody's building a very specific, complicated tech product and they don't have a strong tech lead and they're building it over in the Ukraine or over in India or over somewhere else where they've outsourced it, then be worried as an investor. And as a startup, you should be worried too, because you want to make sure the best in class are dealing with those particular areas too.
Yeah.
And at that stage, strength of team is more important than increase in equity for yourself. Having 0% of zero is not going to get you anywhere. Right. You want to have an amazing team because you only have so many times to have a go at the startup thing before you start running out of time. Okay. Yeah. Third thing is we want to be able to see that the market size, in our case, can hit $10 million a month in revenue. That there is the ability for this company, whatever product, whatever widget they bring out, that it can hit $10 million a month in revenue. Why is that important to us when we come in early? Because we know that the name of this game is to bring the company through rounds of financing, through their pre-seed, through their seed, through their Series A, through their B, their C, and maybe even further on. If they do not have a market size which can get to $10 million a month in revenue, then those later stage investors will not invest because they cannot get a return. And if they don't invest, that means our investment can never get to where it's supposed to get to. So it's a train that's connected with carriages. The market size needs to be able to get there. In truth, if they reached $1 million a month in revenue, that would be okay. Now, we call it island hopping to get to that stage. And just to put that number into statistics, only 4% of all companies in America will reach $100,000 a month in revenue. Really? Only 10% of that 4% will ever reach $1 million a month in revenue. And only 10% of that 10% will ever reach $10 million a month in revenue. So the statistical probability of someone being able to get to $10 million a month in revenue is pretty friggin' low. Sorry. So you make sure your execution power and what you're doing is off the charts. You make sure that your team have skill gapped off the charts, and you make sure that your market potential is there. Then the next thing then is to be able to look and say, how do we make sure that this company can go from where it is right now to $100,000 in revenue, $100,000 a month? And I want to be able to track that out with math if I can. I want to be able to look at what's happened with existing customers. How much are they spending? Why are they spending? What's their value? What's their pushback? And then what's the probability of getting more customers? What's the cost of acquisition for those customers? What type of advertising do we have to do? And what is the potential for being able to drive that up? I don't want to be a futurist if I can help it. I would rather be a mathematician. So that 100,000 is the only thing I need to be able to track. If I can track that and I can work out how much money we need to raise for them to be able to get to that $100,000 a month, now I can work out what is the probability of them being able to become a unicorn in the future. And then the final thing, and it's really important, and it's the area where all of the groups that I'm talking about are the worst at, and that is at raising money. Okay? Because everybody has the same Catholic Irish guilt that, you know, we're brought up with as kids. You know, even if we don't eat our dinner, we're made to feel guilty about it, right? So we imagine raising $50 million. It's like, oh my God, I apologize for any of the money that we've wasted before we even take it in our bank accounts. So you've got that in spades, and every culture has it for a different reason, but they're all afraid of money. Rich people understand that money is a tool. Poor people have a fear relationship with money. They're afraid of not being able to hit their mortgage, afraid of not being able to pay their people, afraid that they won't be able to buy their kids food at the end of the month. Rich people understood money is nothing more, nothing less than a tool. So we need to move into that mindset of this is a tool, and it is a tool to achieve something. And what is the mathematical probability of achieving that? And then how does that compare risk versus return? And we need to be able to explain that very carefully. Sorry, I know it's a long explanation, but that's our entire diligence criteria when we look at customers.
It's amazing. And so I heard really two underlying themes there. One, the team, you know, having the right people in the right place. And if you don't have those right people, fill those gaps to make sure that you've got a solid team, you're moving forward and having trust and faith in that team. And then the other one that I really heard was knowing the numbers. It's amazing to me sometimes how many business owners that will sit down with that don't know what their CAC is, that don't know, you know, what the investment is to get to that next stage. And so continuing to reinforce of knowing those numbers and just understanding them inside and out. So when they do get the opportunity to sit down with the conversation with you, it's not wasted time, right? I would imagine that using that time as best as possible to expose, here's what we're paying right now to get a customer. Here's where we see if we spend this much more, this market opportunity or this untapped marketing channel could open that up. And then you can explore those spaces together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this is a game of beasts. You gotta be so hard. Like, it's so difficult. Most entrepreneurs are waking up. Like, I have a call this evening, one of my Israeli entrepreneurs, and I will speak to her at 8 p.m. this evening. And I think it's 4:30 in Israel or 5 a.m. in the morning in Israel. And she's like, no, that's okay. She's got 2 kids. So she's a beast. Like, entrepreneurs are beasts. You have to be unbelievably resilient.
Right.
And then you have to have this mindset of absolute abundance. And that mindset of absolute abundance has got to be centered in something.
One of the things, Brian, for me, my goals have always been since, to continue to build this diverse and inclusive community since the start of SubSummit. Over the years, I found it's been accelerated and even more, I guess, kind of accentuated as my daughters have started to grow up more and express interest in business. And I've shared more with them, and I look at it and say, like, how can I continue to help their future as best as possible? And so when I hear statistics and some of the numbers that you share, it excites me even more to help make that change.
Oh, that's beautiful. And can I let me leave everybody with a bit of hope, if I can, right? So what's beautiful in the world today, right now, in this moment, and I've been on this planet for 51 years, so I've been around for a while. I've been through a bunch of recessions, and I've seen good stuff and bad stuff, and I've seen unfairness in many ways in the 40 or 50 countries that I've lived in during that time. This is, without question, a unique and absolutely interesting time. Within startup, we have never, ever, ever had an opportunity for everybody in the world. I don't care where you come from, in Africa or India or Eastern Europe or Ireland or anywhere else in America where you're poor. I don't care where you come from. Everybody can get access to drop shipping. Everybody can get access to building a company. Everybody can sell something. And the technology is right where we are right now. Yeah. But what folks have to do, you need to unleash the beast in yourself and actually go out there and do something awesome. That's right. Just pull it off and get out there and build an effing awesome thing. Yeah. It stops with you. That's it.
That's so awesome, Brian. I couldn't have said it better myself. I completely agree with you 100%. And I'm so excited that you shared that too with our audience. Last thing, if people want to connect with you, if people want to find you, is there a great way to do it? Do you prefer Twitter or LinkedIn, going to your website?
So my email is brian@expertdojo.com, BRIAN, expertdojo.com. Website is expertdojo.com. People can apply there, or they can just shoot me an email and apply, and I'll put them over to one of our guys.
Brian, thank you so much for joining today. Awesome conversation. I truly appreciate it. Our community truly appreciates it.
My pleasure. It's great.